Hello, we're now live on Facebook. So this week we're going to be discussing light codes, templates and downloads and what's been happening for us during some soul journeys. So we're a bit late starting up, so just give us a few minutes to share all of the links so that we can get our live shared out. And anybody watching this that thinks there's somebody you know that might be interested in what we're doing, then share our links with your pages too. That'd be fantastic, that we can get some more followers. So if we're all ready, I'll just wait for Alicia to give me the nod. 1 minute, yeah, so it's in. So every week we've been getting together, we've been discussing things like the core wounds of being a light worker, embodiment, that seemed to be in a popular video, things like self-care as a multidimensional being. And I'm not sure if we actually know where we're going from 1 week to the next, because we let our higher selves kind of decide the topics. So this week we're going to be talking about how we receive, like last week was all about embodiment and how our bodies need to be part of the journey. So we thought it would be good if we explained what's been happening for us there. And we decided to do it as a story. Now, the story is really complicated, so we've tried to make it as simple as possible. And I'm hoping my internet will come back. And my internet's flipping already. But I'm hoping that you'll get a feeling for how we describe the story as a means to understanding how we work with insights and our planetary grid work that we've been doing. So I think we're ready now to hand over, yes?
Perfect. Yeah, everything's all good here. So hello and welcome, beautiful souls, to our Multidimensional Monday. We're very super excited to be here today with all of you. And if you're connecting with us for the first time, my name is Alicia with my mom, Eva, and we're co-creatrixes of Ascension with our galactic sister, Trudy, White Star Soul Guidance. So if you're catching the live on Facebook or here on Zoom with us, please do say hello in the comments or in the chat, and a warm welcome to those of you who are watching the replay. If you want to go ahead and hashtag replay if you are, so then that way we can circle back around later to say hello to you as well. So I'm just going to read the comments here. Marta says, hello, everyone. Lillian says, hello, everyone. So each Monday, we will be here live sharing our multidimensional experiences, stories, and earthly musings of living as a multidimensional being in a human body and how we're bridging the two together. So this week's topic is about light codes, insights, and downloads that we've been receiving on our recent soul journey and where it led us.
So it's kind of like one of those things where this is going to be difficult to explain. So follow along with us and ask questions and we'll try and explain it. But we've got 30 minutes to tell you quite a complex story. It's probably one of our most hardest ones. And we're going to try and tell it from each of our three perspectives, because every time we try and show it from the divine intelligence, the divine architecture, the divine encryption aspects of what we do. So it all started last couple of weeks ago, I think, with our crystal expert who introduced me some crystals, and suddenly this crystal grid appeared in my life. And it was quite an unusual grid because I've been working with a lot of galactic stones like star brays and things like that with encodings from the galactic realms. And this was a much more earthier one. And the description I wrote about this is, it felt like primordial tears of Gaia, glacial etched crystals encoded with knowledge of creation, and sedimentary and fossilized stones marking the stages of evolution. And that really is kind of the summation of what that grid was doing. So when I first put the grid out, we could feel this kind of like deep access to the earth, but couldn't quite put my finger on what. So I usually pull cards then to help. I find the cards help give us more words for things that we sense normally, because we're all light workers. We read light, but putting it into English is quite tough. So the first card I pulled was a grounding card, but I knew it wasn't the regular grounding like we've been taught. This was much more a primordial access to something deep within the earth layers. So then to understand like what was this grid going to achieve, the second card I pulled was actually a cartouche and divine names. And when I looked into that, what that represented was a cartouche was something the Egyptians used as a way to tie the soul to the body. So that kind of gives us a clue that whatever this grid was doing in the deep layers of the earth, it was going to impact the soul and our body and how the lot fitted together.
Yeah, and then for myself, I then too pulled oracle cards every week, and I actually pulled this one in particular 2 weeks in a row at that time, and it had a picture of the earth on it with smoke coming from the middle and all around it, and within the center was a beautiful diamond ray crystal that represented definitely the frequencies that were coming in as well. And after tuning into Trudy's crystal grid, it then triggered me to have those whispers. And like those whispers during the state, just right before you fall asleep. I know that there's a specific name to it, but I've been tuning into it more and more and trying to keep and hold that picture, but it's very hard. So you do have to concentrate. But I was seeing architectural structures and those platonic solid towers, and it was all related to the water and air elements that I could remember and that I wrote down in my journal there.
Yes, and when I tuned into Trudy's grid and oracle card, immediately I felt heaviness in my head, and then I had this sense of dark inner nausea in my stomach, and I was shown there's a new vapor coming up from Gaia, that something very old is being activated, that was part of an extremely primordial dormant occurrence that needs to be transformed into something new. So as you can see, we are starting to notice the theme of water and gases and air.
So we can imagine now, I've just had some crystals. They've started building this grid. It's starting to give this image. And then all of a sudden, Alicia's pulling similar cards and Ava's noticing similar things. So we're all starting to look at each other now going, there's something bigger here. This is not just a coincidence. Something big is happening. So for the gases, when Sir Ava mentioned the gases, and my card actually had what looked like vapors rising up on the card as well. This reminded me that in August, I was getting lots of oxygen-related cards. Now, normally I'd read them as something like maybe intelligence from the kind of elemental point of view, but this kept saying, no, this was to do with the molecule oxygen, which led me back on a search to the great oxygenation period, where oxygen almost made the whole planet extinct, which was quite a surprise. I didn't know such a time existed. But that seemed to be playing a part in this, that whatever we were doing with this grid seemed to be related to the creation of oxygen on the earth.
Yeah, and with that awareness, I think that was rising for me was that many were starting to, again, struggle with breathing. At this time, it was just almost like from that 2 years ago to now, it's coming back around. So I was tuning into where I felt that there was going to be a lot of upgrades needed in order to assist with filtering the air that we're breathing in currently at this time. And Trudy had mentioned, when I mentioned that, she had also mentioned that she was struggling too with the breathing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was like in August, I was thinking, surely we're at the end of all of this now. Why is it coming up with oxygen again? So it was interesting that we were all starting to actually feel like breathing was becoming an issue for us. So the next thing we noticed, I logged on randomly to the internet, and that pops this volcano picture saying that 800-year-old Alaskan volcano is suddenly stirring again. Because now I'm thinking, if those vapors are meant to come out of the planet, doesn't that kind of mean earthquake, volcano? That was where my mind was starting to go. I'm thinking, well, I hope this isn't like a premonition dream that we're going to have some rough kind of geological kind of movements on the planet. But up pops this volcano, 800 years dormant. And it's got an ice cap on the top, which kind of ties into the glacial aspect that we were all sensing into in the water as well. And Alaska, obviously being up in the ice kind of region, we started to think there's something going on that's linking this together.
Yeah, and this brought me to have a remembrance of vivid dreams of water and floods and glaciers moving across the ocean. And I was with my family in Florida, and we were just all watching the ocean. And then there was this huge glacier moving across from us. And what was really weird is I found my two granddaughters were on top of this glacier, and they were celebrating, and I could hear their laughter still in my ears. And I was like going into panic mode, and which didn't make sense in the whole picture, in the whole dream, because they were having such a wonderful celebration time on the glaciers.
So you can see now we're starting to kind of scratch our heads and going, okay, this is a little bit strange. Why are we being shown all of this? That's always the first question is, look, why are we shown this? And what are we supposed to understand from this? And because we do a lot of planetary work, we have to allow for the fact that this isn't always a personal message. This could be something bigger than us. And I think we can all agree we've all been called to do grid working on the earth and in the galactic realms that we probably don't share out loud with other people. We just kind of do it and get on with it. So this kind of then leads me back in, well, probably over the last 10 years, I was getting a lot of creation kind of dreams, going back and understanding the creation from Darwin to the mythologies, all the different ways that we describe creation. And I was getting drawn back there quite often in my searches and my detective work. But there was one book that I was drawn to called Origins by Dan Brown. So I don't know if you guys have read that. Has anybody read that book? Maybe pop that into the comments. And what we found was that that book was all about the primordial soup and the kind of Darwin reason for how people, suppose our evolution took place, but on an elemental level. And I didn't realize it at the time I was reading it, but at that one point, it suddenly really clicked home to me that there was something really important and primordial that we needed to remember and that we needed to embody. And that sounds weird, to embody something from that period and bring it forward into our bodies, but it felt like an old energy that was ancient, but also new to us in our current understanding. And the crystal grid was just kind of reminding us all of that and triggering all three of us in its own ways to go back and start looking at all the information we'd received in the past. So we knew that it was a gas, but we actually didn't know how to progress from that point. And I remember we all sat there looking at each other and I just said, does anybody know if an atom's bigger than a molecule, or if a proton or a neuron, where do they all fit into things? Because when I work with divine intelligence, which means I need a structure, or at least I don't need it, but a structure helps me follow a logical path through all these confusing informations. So if I could work out the order of these things, then I could easily work out then where we need to go next. And as I asked Alicia and Ava, they just looked blankly at me and started laughing. And at this point, we're like, oh my God, we're about to have a physics lesson. The universe is going to take us on that journey. So when we get this kind of information, we have to be very creative in how we try to resolve it. And this was probably my hardest one, to make the intelligence make sense. But if I can, this is why I keep talking about the Rumpelstiltskin theory, because once you name something, it can't be unseen. So we often try to give it a name, even if it's not quite accurate, as long as it represents the energy we're seeking. Then once we've got it, we can then weave it and then bring it through in different architectures and encryption.
Yeah. I just want to read out Jenny's comment here on Zoom. Just remembered my last one-to-one with Trudy. I had saw mountains with snow on top as my crown. How interesting, eh?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
That was a really weird crown, because when she was describing, she wouldn't tell me at first because she didn't believe what she saw. But yeah, I think it's very much in tune with what we've been seeing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. So I think for myself, when we were going through all this, it reminded me that about 2 years ago that I started to receiving very scientific yet cosmic downloads about the evolution of molecular structures related to the rhythms and earth magnetism. But I did record them in all of my journal, because the language that came out was very, very foreign to me, as I didn't understand any scientific terminology. I didn't do very well in science in school. So any of the wording that that I was hearing or seeing, I had to write it all down in very much detail. I'd read it back to myself. I'd send it over to Mom. That was about 2 years ago. And we'd be like, no idea what this means, but it talked about, bouncing jelly balls and earth magnetism and everything like that. So anyways, it was a good piece that came into play during this soul journey that had reminded me of it. And then even a few months ago, the Star children and I have 2 older ones that go to high school, 2 that are homeschooled, the younger ones. Anyways, we were learning about the periodic table. So when we were looking through that book, it had a title called, I think, the Stardust That Made Us, or something like that. So it was very interesting for me. But I had felt at that time when we were learning about the periodic table that ancient or either new elements are going to be surfacing soon. And we talked about that, me and the Star children, and we were just going in to see what we were tuning into. But I did feel that it was coming more because of our consciousness expansion, that these new ancient organic elements are going to be coming almost like coming back into our consciousness in order for us to expand even further. It's kind of like our consciousness was not ready to receive that new element or that ancient element again, but because of this more of expansion, we are able to now receive that to come into our fields, if that makes sense, if I'm making sense.
So before we move on, does anybody else get insights that are outside of their technical knowledge skill set? And how do you cope with it? So, like you're having dreams about sciences and you're not science, or you're music and you're not a musician. Anybody having things like that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
We'll wait for them to write, but I'll continue. Several days prior to our journey, I was in meditation, and this chaotic ocean appeared. And it's not the first time, it's been through several times and through other people's healings as well. But within this chaotic ocean, there was a stone energy being, and it was in the calmness under the chaos. So you imagine the chaos here, and it was wicked waves and everything. And there was a stone person in the calmness underneath it. And what was happening is I saw the stone was being chiseled away from the stone person. And that perhaps maybe it was myself being emerged, but it was a physical being. And then when I looked up above the chaos, there was like a prehistoric birdfish swimming above, which really brought me back that I believe we're all being shown primordial settings. But until the three of us really began sharing our individual downloads, that we were able to really weave it all together and really start understanding it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to read Lillian's comment too here. Yes, I got a dream about formulas, which initially I did not understand. However, after reviewing it several times, I then understood it was a formula for one of my blends. Yes. Okay. So there's always those dreams that we have to kind of remember and interpret later on, right?
Definitely. Well,
Yeah.
2 years later for some of
Yeah.
us on this stuff.
Yeah.
The origins for me have been going on for 10 years. And it's like only now that it's all kind of making sense.
Definitely. That's why I do love my journals. You know, I always say to the kids, you know, when I pass away, take those journals and read all of my stuff here, because I keep everything in there, and it's collected over the years, and stuff that didn't make sense, and downloads and anything else. So those are really important too.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And during this time, actually one of my older child, I hope you don't mind me saying, Zaheva, joined us. So through all of this, she got to experience this firsthand on how we work and how we relate back to older messages. And her too, she wasn't very scientific either. So she was just joining in on our downloads and uploads and everything else. So
we're looking at her going, come on, you're in school, you must know about the periodic tables and if atoms are bigger than molecules. It was long ago for when we did this last.
So it's funny. But during that time, I also was reading a book about like the white lions, and I actually didn't finish the book, but I just happened to start reading the second to last chapter a couple days before this, and there was a message or a quoted message in the book from a spirit guide there, and it was sharing about how the fear that humanity is experiencing was creating an ice age, and how raising our heart consciousness would cause the glaciers to melt. So I just happened to read that about maybe a day or two before that we went into this whole journey. But I do feel that this is, I think it's like a metaphor to explain about how our consciousness is moving from that cold, fearful heart age to that warm, expanded heart age. And that's the metaphor between the ice age and the melting of the glaciers.
Oh, for sure. And it really does feel like our bodies are like, I always talk about evolution as we evolve our physical bodies. That's how our consciousness also ascends. So you can't have ascension without our bodies physically moving with it. And I feel like with Dan Brown's book, Origin, that's what he's talking about, is we're at that stage of the next evolution. And you think about how long have we been in this human form, and are we ready now to switch into something else? And I don't think it's going to be a radical or a very physically changed kind of outer experience, but I think it is going to be a very deep inner experience change. And I think that's what this was all leading us to, was our bodies needed this new element to help it expand, change its internal structures and the way it works, so we can take on more light. So at this point, all we know is that we're working with some element, a gas, a molecule, and that it's been entrapped, possibly corrupted, trapped in the ice of all things, and that it was related to oxygen. And now we're wondering, like, now what do we do other than we need to release it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then that's when we're Google searching here, and this is where we're going. And amazingly, we found a link sharing specifically about damaged lungs by continuing an ancient battle that began in the primordial soup. which was posted October 31st, 2022. So this basically was within days before our soul journey, which showed us just that basically the scientific community was tuning into the same thing that we were tuning into, but they were just writing about it.
And this was just a few days before. I don't know if I froze then or you froze. Was it me?
You.
But that's okay. That means we got it on video what you said. That's cool.
Okay.
So it took us some time to work out, like it was getting for me for divine intelligence. It was testing all my intelligence to piece this together. It was like my brain felt like it was going to explode, trying to hold all these different strands and different threads and trying to make sense of it. You know, even things like I was hearing about iron pyrite and its involvement in that period of time, and cyanobacteria, then how they were creating the oxygen. You know, there was all these kind of scientific things going on. And the videos were kind of just repeating back either elements that were in my grid or things that we'd spoken about. And it was just kind of overwhelming. But eventually, and I think this was your daughter that got us to the quark, she identified the thing we were looking for was a quark. Now, I don't know what a quark is, but quark sounded right and it resonated with us. It was the right thing. So we then knew that it was also related to oxygen. And don't ask how, we don't know. We just know that somehow there was a quark that had an oxygen related thing that as soon as we pinpointed it, we could do something with it. So imagine this is quite a complex shopping list. If you were sent out shopping for this, you'd have probably just gone home and given up. But when we're trying to understand these kind of downloads, I don't know, I've met so many people who have much simpler downloads than we have, for sure. But that's one thing that drew us all together, is we all have a very similar language. And when we talk, we have the same experiences, which helps us feel more able to deal with these complexities and to be able to understand what's going on. So can you imagine if you were at this point now that you've got all of these pieces of the puzzle, what would you have done with that? What would be your next step? Would you have just put it aside as some sort of crazy premonition dream, or just too much cheese before you went to bed? I don't know. But share in the comments what you would have done at this point.
Yes, because I'm thinking now when you're sharing that, I think it was, remember, she had hiccups. She happened to get hiccups when we were talking about corks, and we're like, oh no, is the corks? It was just coming through her. I think it was the hiccups.
Yeah, every time we said the word quark, she hiccuped. Your daughter. I was like, we must be on to something. Yeah. Oxygen, hiccups, quarks. Yeah, I think this is a clue. So at this point, we didn't really know what to do with the pieces that we had. So we tried a different tact. We thought, okay, we've got a rough idea of what we're searching for and what it means. Let's ask why. Let's ask the why does it want us to know this, and what does it want us to do about this? So imagine at this point, we're asking, why were the quarks trapped or corrupted, and what do we need to do about it?
Yeah, so I think that's when we discovered the resulted in the Earth having the corrupted molecules, which in turn blocked basically humanity and planetary's ascension of consciousness. And this relates back to the lion metaphor of the melting glaciers. Yeah,
that just reaffirmed that, didn't it? Kind of that sentence suddenly made more sense to us at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And the weird thing was, we got the sense like we were wondering, like, well, when did this happen? And it came up as the Iron Age. Now, we'd had lots of iron aspects, because when the oxygen was produced by these, I don't even know if I'm saying it right, cyanobacteria, it was creating iron oxide, I think, in the ocean. I'm not scientific, but I just think it was that kind of thing. So iron kept coming up. It was my hematites and my iron-infused crystals in the grid. So it was kind of interesting to see that the Iron Age was when this happened. It was almost like humanity gave up evolving their consciousness for evolving practical skills. And that's the best. So I don't think we'll know much more than that. That's as far as we got on understanding that. But if you guys have got any insights that are relating to this, then share and help us piece this together. That'd be fantastic. Mm-hmm. So the other interesting thing was, we've been working with a divine truth temple that we created that helps take people through and integrate divine truth into themselves on many levels, because truths have to be processed, absorbed, assimilated. And whenever we did this, we always saw the truth, the consciousness of the new truth coming through as a single crystalline water droplet. So now we're kind of going, oh, is that why we're using that? Is it to do with these kind of oceans and the glaciers and all the water? Because water's extremely, like, it's the most absorbent. If you've ever played the kind of games with rocks, scissors, and paper, water would be the kind of paper, wouldn't it? It dissolves everything. It carves out rock. It creates so much destruction. It's very powerful, and it has the ability to absorb all the ancient codes. And that's what we were getting the feeling of. There was a lot of ancient codes trapped in the waterways. So once I've sourced the divine intelligence, I actually then get a break. My brain gets to cool down and rest, because that's when I become the project manager. So we went back 2.4 billion years ago, back to meeting the cyanobacteria and exploring the landscape of primordial Earth. And I handed over to Alicia and Ava to actually release and do the process that needed to bring it forward in time.
Beautiful. Yeah. So that's when I step into that divine architectural role, because it reminded me back to that time where I had that whisper and that visual of that molecular structure and that platonic solid tower structure. And when I typed in, when I Google searched that certain structure name, it was a isosahedron tower. I found this picture, and this picture reminded me basically the exact same visual that I had during that state and that whisper that came in. But it looked a little bit different, but it ended up being that main architecture within the molecule that needed to be resurrected, and for it to have that, basically that ever evolving architecture, for it to be preserved from that 2.4 billion years ago and evolving as each step of the way, coming back into the present moment. But then I handed it over to Eva.
Yes, and as the divine encryptor within me was able to work in collaboration as we journeyed back 2.4 billion years before the Ice Age to weave a pyrite type flexible skin upon the earth that we and Alicia both saw simultaneously at the same time. So this grid-like skin expanded into the then oceans to protect it as the earth moved forward and as we evolved. So
that's the kind of story that we've got.
Yeah.
I just want you guys to share any insights that you're getting from this. Is any of this resonating? Do you feel any of this is a deep truth? And Eva's going to just explain a bit more about what happened next. But I just wanted to see if anybody had. I'm not seeing much on Facebook. Have you guys seen any comments coming through on Facebook?
No, nothing that
okay,
I.
Then it's not just me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Lillian's saying, is this resonating with me?
Beautiful. Yeah. Wondering if you could tune in to feel that part of that molecule and that architectural upgrade and that weaving into the air and into the water, because we brought it back from that 2.4 all the way to here. Just seeing if you could tune into that that difference.
Yeah, because I guess now it's going to start to like activating into the air around us, so that we can all, if we're ready and we're willing, because we're always very concentrating on free will. We don't force this on anyone. We have to allow people to choose to connect to this. So if you're hearing this story and you want to choose to connect to it, it's there. We've done the planetary work. It's there for you guys to connect to.
Leah's on Facebook. Hello, beautiful sisters. Much love. Much love to you.
I got that one as well. Cool.
Oh.
I just was starting to think my Facebook wasn't working. But...
Oh, no, it's there.
So what do we do with all this information we collected?
So we feel releasing the new quark made it possible to allow body to move into the next level of evolution, which would enable the physical body to hold more light and higher consciousness states.
So for me, what I found was, like, when we do work like this is the planetary level grid work that we have to do. This kind of makes it accessible to any light worker that wants to work with it. It's there now for people to connect to. Obviously, we have a deeper connection to it because we helped play with it and work with it and bring it forward. But my next job then was, on my Sunday readings, it said that the grid was my next soul journey that I had to create. And my soul journeys are basically journeys to experience energies that I've been experiencing. So I was like, they don't need to go back and experience this back at 2.4 billion years, but what am I supposed to do with this? And that's when I did this this meditation to absorb this new molecule or this new quark into your body that would allow the changes and the templates to take place within the human body, so you could then integrate more of your higher self. But even though I knew it was connecting to your higher self, what was really important to me was that it created this deep connection to the earth. And I read this this description, which really summed it up for me. It was almost like my grid was emitting enough energy to realize how futile sometimes our efforts might be. And in the grand scheme of things, certain events won't matter at all, because at the end of the day, we are just made up of the elements of the earth. And it was that kind of almost like a grounding that I felt when I was doing that activation. It just made me feel extremely like back to my pieces, without all, not even identity and all the mindset stuff, but back like as a human being, feeling that those cyanobacteria were like part of my ancestry, and all of those molecules were part of my ancestry. It was almost like I went back to the subatomic version of myself. And that's what I was working on from the results of this.
Yeah, those are beautiful words shared. Yeah, that was beautiful. Reading here Lillian's comment, since my one-to-one session with Eva, working with my truth, I could definitely tune into it. Beautiful. And I know there was a comment here on Facebook. Will, I certainly resonate with the changes over the ages. What you are saying feels to be unlocking information that was missing. Okay. Yeah, and then for myself, after we did this, I was tuning back into the diamond ray that was coming through on that oracle card that kept presenting to me over 2 weeks in a row. So I had felt that this diamond ray was coming in through the air, and that we were going to be able to, for those who are ready and choose to, be able to integrate this. And what we did, Eva and I, on our recent light integration journey, is that we brought forward the diamond ray frequency. We traveled in through the diamond ray consciousness and got our own, basically our essence of the diamond ray, and we brought it back into our bodies to integrate this more on a deeper level. But I do feel that this seemed to have solidified our previous work and soul journey to this event that created the ability in order for us to now receive that diamond ray and that beautiful air elemental.
And it kind of feels like, you know, when we kind of work together here on Multidimensional Mondays, and we're working on our Stardust series together, but our individual works are linked as well. You know, between my air one and your diamond one, you put those two together and you're getting a powerful activation that fits in with what we've been describing today. So the thing is, you know, when you listen to stories like this, it's a bit unreal. I should point out that last night I was watching TV, and on TV, and I've been watching Star Trek Voyager, admittedly, but still, up until now, I'm on season like 3 because I've never watched them before. And nothing like this has appeared until last night, where it said, hey, we've just discovered the omega molecule. And it's come back from the Big Bang, and it's got more energy in it than all the other molecules and particles that we've seen. And it kind of reminded me a bit of the God particle that they found as well. And I was like, why has that just appeared now? But I do kind of feel like I had a card recently that said that we're tuning in to the wrong source of energy that's not supplying us enough to do what we need to do. And I'm now wondering if that's also linked to this, which might be this week's activation in itself. So you can't really prove any of this stuff, obviously, unless we find more scientific journals appear tomorrow saying, we found a new molecule, and we'll all be sitting there going, oops. But what I've noticed is that when we speak to clients who have experienced our activations that we're building off the back of that, they are feeling a deep shift in their consciousness. And you know, just Will listening to us speaking now is saying the same. And it's not logical, but you feel it deep inside you. And I think that's all we can ask for, isn't it? If we can create these shifts and these awarenesses and these remembrances, then we're doing things right. So I know we're a few minutes over, but we're almost done. So just to finish off, there was one other aspect that I wanted to mention, and that was that back at solstice, we started noticing the 2 snakes of Kundalini were becoming 4 dragons: earth, fire, water, and air. And we've been starting to work those into our activations too. Now, when we got together and started discussing this, we discovered there were 4 cosmic matching elements: stardust, solar flares, cosmic waters, and the solar winds. Interestingly, after we did this work, everything merged together. And I think we'll keep that for next week.
Great ending.
That is. So I know that this was different, right? And it was different for us too when we were doing this journey. So what is one takeaway from today? If you'd like to share that in the chat.
Yeah, I think I'll just continue here, just keep it moving, that we can, as you can see from today's shares, that we're very all passionate in about bringing in that higher consciousness and activating that new higher consciousness in order for you to be able to integrate that within, and going back and transforming something into something new in order for you to expand that multidimensional expansion. So this is what makes our Stardust Being Human series really unique, as not only do we co-facilitate the soul journey of recalibration, but we include that physical movement to help anchor in anchor in that recalibration. And a part of us embodying our own multidimensionality, we had been discovering, as you can see, our core wounds on a galactic and soul level. So we've been developing the series as part of our mission to accelerate the descension of your multidimensional selves into your physical reality for that, again, that continuous expansion into higher dimensions, into more truth, and aligning with those frequencies, essences, and that multidimensional timeline of heaven on earth, or that 5D consciousness. And we've organized these series as monthly recalibrations and activations, and we've opened up another date again for our soul journey of releasing the core wound of slavery and manipulation. So we're inclined to offer this to a group of starseeds, light workers, conscious souls, or just anyone who is desiring to stop blaming themselves for that accumulation of misaligned energy throughout their multidimensional selves and their lifetimes. So if you are ready to step into the amazing human being you came here to be, and to receive and integrate the new spiritual liberation template, and as you can see, we bring in that divine intelligence, that divine architecture, and we weave it all in, and that's what creates that template within. So we invite you to join us on Saturday, November 19th for a 4-hour journey as we are divinely facilitating these together as a powerful and unique trio to offer that multidimensional restructuring and alignment to accelerate the evolution of your soul and help you step more easily into that 5D timeline. So we're just going to attach a link to all the details below in the comments, or you can reach out to us, Crystalline Ascension or White Star Soul Guidance, and we'd be happy to connect with you.
And there's an early bird price that ends on Friday, I think.
Oh yes, November 12th. You're right. Yes, perfect. I just saw some comments coming through.
There's some comments.
Good.
Aisha?
Let me go back up to the Zoom ones. Lillian, always expect the unexpected. Marta, our soul is old down to subatomic level. Yeah, very true. Jenny, always paying attention to the signs and downloads. Don't dismiss them, even if they don't make sense. Yes, Lillian, also to always seek your truth and be aware of false truth. Yes. Susie, my takeaway is huge gratitude for the three of you. I haven't resonated today as much as last week, but this doesn't mean anything. I am learning to watch and witness my response, not a reaction. There is a sadness I am witnessing. It is so good you are doing this. Thank you. Feels Core Wound Department.
Beautiful.
And that's what this is all triggering. You know, I think what's going to happen from what we've done, given that we did it during an eclipse season as well, is it's going to start bringing up some more core wounds related to what this atom is going to bring up for us. So it's going to be interesting to see how we all start shifting, or how quickly we start getting some more insights.
Yeah, there was a few comments on fate.
Yeah, I've got one from Jilly. Great seeing 3 again. Brilliant work. I think that's it on there.
All right then.
All caught up?
Yes,
Yeah.
we are.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your time with us. If there's anything you would enjoy us to speak about, please put it in the chat. We hope you're starting to see all your multidimensional aspects too, and we invite you to keep joining us every Monday here through the Facebook Live, or come and join us on Zoom. As after we close the Facebook Live, we stay on for a bit on Zoom and answer any further questions or insights, as it is our intention that through our sharings, you will discover your unique frequency and how valuable that truly is. If you resonated with any of these issues and wanted more, then contact us to arrange a one-on-one where we can look at your challenges and we can design a solution specifically for you. So until then, we would love to continue our conversations with you in our collaborative Facebook group called Higher Consciousness Living, Stepping Boldly into the Unknown, which we will leave the link below.
So guys, next week we're going to carry on with our dragons and this Kundalini and new life force energy that's available to be tapped into. So hopefully you can join us next Monday. And yeah, join us in our group, because you know, you might have thoughts after hearing all of this and you want to share with us, then join our group, and then we'll answer you there. So that would be great. So we're going to say goodbye to our Facebook Live, because we're going to spend some time with our Zoom attendees. So bye guys.
Bye.
And hope you all have a good evening.